Well, how do that, chums? As I'm Captain Stephen. Today, chums, for you guys out there in the viewerverse, I'm here to talk about a few things that feel a little bit sort of unfinished with inside of No Man's Sky. Or I should say, were started out pretty darn freaking awesome, and then have sort of gone a little bit lackluster, or sort of replaced with something else that started out as awesome, and then went a little bit lackluster. So first of all, I'm talking about the weekend sort of missions, because beforehand, people, we used to get some freaking awesome weekend missions every single weekend that included quite a lot of lore that was actually written by Greg Buchanan. And yes, it all ties into the progress bar and getting some Quicksilver items. Now, the Quicksilver items, I must say, have remained awesome throughout, apart from we are getting titles every now and again thrown in here, which aren't really items per se, and I really don't see people running around with those that they've unlocked through Quicksilver. But there we go, we are getting lots of base parts, so the Quicksilver items are still good, but the Quicksilver missions themselves, we've only had a couple added. Now on to the weekend mission lore. So this is the weekend mission lore from Greg Buchanan's website under No Man's Sky. So I'm going to read you out some of the actual weekend lore to catch you up on how awesome it was, because this was going back a little while ago. This was like last summer or something. Here we go, here's the exact date. June to September of 2020. Okay, so chums, I'm going to put all of the lore for the weekend missions up on the actual screen here so you can actually read through this yourself. I know I said that I was going to read it out, but my reading abilities are a little bit lackluster, to be fair, so I'm just going to point out some of the actual interesting aspects of the actual lore. So, the Abyss. It looks like Ariadne travelled into the Abyss. Not only did Ariadne travel into the Abyss, but also these other named travellers. Asteria, Narcissus, Lazarus, Artemis and Hildebrand. Well, we know what happened to Artemis. We actually created a mind arc and we put it into a simulation at the back of the Nexus. Funny how that simulation is marked as Simulation 5. Could it be that the Abyss all this time is now a simulation with inside of the Nexus? However, Artemis only ended up in there because of the mind arc. So there must be an Abyss other than where he finds himself now. Where he finds himself now is just a simulation. So yes, it's a bit of an odd one. So the Abyss is actually a physical place, and it does mention here that, Ariadne encountered a dark freighter that laid in between suns. Now we are seeing settlements coming into the actual settlements that we've put in during the Frontiers update that state that they have travelled between boundaries, and the entrance point seems to be black holes. But when they say they're in between boundaries, we have got the boundary failures. There's a mention here of the emissaries of glass, which I highlighted for a little bit longer there. Now, the emissaries of glass, they live within inside of this realm that we're calling the Void or the Abyss, or the Realm of Glass, which is also mentioned as. So what are these emissaries of glass? It does mention a Korvax failed experiment, where all of the actual occupants of the failed experiment had their heads replaced with floating orbs of light, a little bit like null. And there is mention of a null value further down in this actual lore we'll get to soon. But yes, this ship is also known, I believe, as the fallen vessel of the Viking Inquisition. Interesting if the plot thickens. Inside of the Traveller's lore, there is mention that they don't know of Viking, Gek, or Korvax from their realm, and these travellers inside of the actual stations that we see are sort of echoes of themselves, shimmering as if made from glass, and perhaps remnants of the realm of glass or echoes thereon of. So I'm wondering whether these emissaries of glass might be, the failed travellers that we're seeing, and echoes or something, I don't know, corrupted travellers perhaps. I'm wondering whether maybe even the flesh helmet that we got given as a reward might be an indication of what might be within inside of the Void. Who knows? Or the Abyss. It's been given so many names. Realm of Glass, the Abyss, and also the Void. Yes, who knows what it actually is, but reading through this, it is quite evident that it is actually a real place, and a place that they tried to simulate through different sorts of experiments, and Hesperus sort of charged that up with the Korvax, and completely obliterated a shed load of Korvax in the doing so thereon of. And we know that they take these sort of souls of travellers to feed into living ships and all sorts of other things, so have we just created an army of these things? Who knows? The lore opens up many other questions too, like Gemini speculates who was the maker of the actual exosuits. Where is the whispering coming from that alludes us to actually do things for this void or this abyss? There's warnings not to drink of the water Why not? What is going on with the water? And is the water a hint to something else happening with inside of the verse? Are we going to get a water physics update or overhaul? During the whole Atlas path, we've always had 16, 16, 16 and 16 minutes remaining. However, inside of this weekend mission lore, it actually ticks down to 15 minutes is remaining. So this is definitely a progression of the lore that we've had from 1616, jump into 1515 as a countdown. And it makes you wonder, where is the 1414? Are we going to get even more lore that alludes to this? And here again it mentions the void and the abyss as actual places. Wells upon wells seethe in the void. The abyss spreads. Now we have got these infested planets that have appeared throughout the verse now, and they've featured heavily on the artwork, even for Frontiers and in Origins to the right-hand pane. The left-hand pane has changed, but the right-hand pane still features those infested planets. So it does make me wonder if we're getting void creep into our universe, or the abyssal creep. You know what I mean? It is looking quite sinister, and a lot of this stuff that is arriving on these infested planets looks very much like that of what we see inside of our living ships. And yeah, it does make me wonder whether we've brought this upon ourselves with the actual awakening, I should say, of these living ships and birthing souls into this organic and machine type matter merged. And I'm wondering whether the new enemies are going to look very similar in keeping. Perhaps they might look like corrupted travelers, but with organic sort of globules on them. Who knows? But yes, Null and also Apollo look very different to the actual travelers we can assemble in the appearance modifier. So it does make me feel that Null or even Apollo could be leading this army, and perhaps we've assisted them with the creation of the Mind Arc and chucking, Artemis into there. Who knows? But it seems to be that these realms are crossing over, and the actual shifts between dimensions and perhaps even builds that Hello Games have put out there in the verse prior are merging into one, people. So yes, I am very excited for things to come, but at the same time, I really wish that the weekend missions were a little bit more involved like they used to be. They've been dialed right back to just being generic missions now, chums, and we haven't had any new addition to that rotation of missions for a while, and they're becoming rather stale to run. Now, talking of which, we also used to have quite a frequent rotation of featured bases and community spotlight pages put out there by Hello Games, yet that has sort of run slow, and we probably only get a rotation of bases maybe once per quarter if we're lucky now. Maybe even not that much. I mean, yes, I haven't actually worked out the actual time differences between, but I know that when my base was featured it was probably up for about, 6 weeks perhaps. However, we're seeing them maybe up now for about 2 to 4 months. So it's a bit weird, it's a bit odd, and I hope they start rotating out and doing community spotlights a bit more. Now that gets me a little bit worried for the expeditions. We had Expedition 1 and Expedition 2 pretty much back to back. So we've already seen a slowing in between Expedition 2 and Expedition 3 because it took freaking months for Expedition 3 to drop. And yes, it does feel to be that Expeditions might be the new sort of thing that Hello Games has added in, yet has now sort of moved away from. I like to hope not though, chums, because they're freaking epic and they could tie lore and story into those and continuation on of the weekend mission lore in an expedition format, which I'd really love if they introduce some lore. Now there's only 2 days remaining. I have a playlist on how to do this super quick. Hit that up, it's in the top right corner. And until next time, you've been awesome. Goodbye, and goodbye again. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers! And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.